recently, we've had some more news that an Aegon's Conquest spin-off is in active development at HBO, with writer Mattson Tomlin leading the project. Something to make clear is this project is completely different to the older Aegon's Conquest project that was in development around the same time as House of the Dragon, and many of the other known spin-offs, with this new project being helmed by a different writing team and likely going in a very different direction from the prior pitch, which, if I'm being honest, is likely a good thing. Given the little we do know about the original pitch, it was definitely not a portrayal of Aegon or the Conquest I would have been keen to see, but something I have always maintained is that yes, while of course I would love to see Aegon's Conquest on screen, it's not the easy spin-off many people assume it to be. I would go far as arguing the build-up and the first Blackfyre Rebellion in itself make much more sense as the next spin-off rather than the Conquest. The reality is, the writers are going to have to work very hard to make the Conquest interesting over the length of a season or more of television. While we know the key details of the Conquest and the general idea of who the characters are, such as Aegon, it's via a vague historical context. The writers are going to need to fill in the blanks that link events together without making the show action scene after action scene after action scene, all the while giving life to these vague historical figures. In many ways, Ryan Condal and the House of the Dragon team also had to do this with House of the Dragon, as they did, with mixed success if I'm honest. But we know a lot more detail about the Dance of the Dragons, and George R. R. Martin delves a lot deeper into the characters of the dance than say Aegon's Conquest. Thus, the writers of the Conquest spin-off are going to have to do what House of the Dragon has done to piece the story together, and more. But I think there are some clever ways they can do this, and I suspect they may approach the Conquest from a very different angle than a lot of people are expecting. On the surface, it seems like it would be a challenge to get more than one season out of Aegon's Conquest, but that really depends entirely on how deep they want to go into it. Does the show finish at his second coronation in Old Town? Or do we delve into the initial invasion of Dorne, the First Dornish War, the death of Rhaenys and the Dragon's Wrath? But on the other hand, we also have the issue of at what point in Aegon's reign do you stop before it turns into an Aegon the Conqueror spin-off rather than an Aegon's Conquest show. You then also have to pick a starting point, and how far back do you want to go? I suspect they might show, at least in the first episode, some of the pre-Conquest shenanigans Aegon was up to, specifically the wars he fought in across the Narrow Sea. This would also give the writers time to really introduce the likes of Visenya, Rhaenys and Orys Baratheon, before things really kick off with the Conquest itself. I would also suspect they would be delving into Aegon's prophecy somewhat during this time. My gut is the show will be a single season of 10 episodes, but depending on how far back they want to start, and how deep into Aegon's reign they want to go, you could maybe do 2 seasons of 8 episodes. If you do any more than 2, I guess you would have to slow the pace down greatly, perhaps ending season 1 with the burning of Harrenhal, spending a lot of time showing the initial landing and conquest of the Crown Lands. Like I said, there are so many ways you could do it really, and it all comes down to the scope they have in mind. The core of the show will come from Aegon, Visenya, Rhaenys, and to some extent Orys Baratheon. But to effectively tell the story of Aegon's Conquest, they are going to need a strong supporting cast. Those 4 characters can't carry the show by themselves. This supporting cast should namely be people on the other side of the Conquest, the people defending their kingdoms. There is a lot you could do with Argilac Durrandon, the last Storm King, and his daughter Argella, who has the potential to be a really interesting character given her role after the events of the last storm. Investing time into her early in the show and seeing characters we care about dying in the last storm will give the battle weight that it would otherwise lack if we get a simple one-sided Targaryen portrait of it. The same can be said about the Field of Fire. It would be much more impactful if time is spent building up Lauren Lannister and Mern Gardner. There could also be a lot of political back and forth between the two, building up this alliance between the historic enemies. Like the last storm, it adds a lot of weight to the Field of Fire. The burning of Harrenhal is already a really fleshed out and interesting part of the book, well known by fans just of the TV show, thanks to how much of a key role Harrenhal plays. Thus, you could take a very different approach with Harren the Black, and maybe spend some time with one of his sons who burns with Harren in the Dragonflame, Perhaps this son could see the gravity and inevitability of the situation, trying to speak sense into his father in vain. By spending time with the kingdoms on the other side of the Conquest, it makes the show less reliant on just Aegon and his sisters, and adds depth and scale to the story that the historical accounts in Fire and Blood currently lacks. I would also look to shows and books like The Last Kingdom, as it really balances the point of view of both sides of a story. You have the Danish and Norse invaders' perspective, countered with the Anglo-Saxon. It gets you invested in characters from both sides. Thus, in battles, there are characters on opposing sides of the battlefield you care about. It's why I find Uhtred of Bebbanburg such an interesting and compelling character, because he embodies the concept of allowing both sides of the conflict to tell a story. The inner conflict and divide within Uhtred, being a man raised as a Dane but born a Saxon, with those two sides of him often at odds and sending him down different paths. It opens up this much more expansive storytelling, and it's something I believe that Aegon's Conquest show needs to embrace to reach its full potential. Show us Argilac and Argella, Lauren the Last, Mern the Ninth Gardener. Show us a different side of House Hall that we've never seen before, and let the audience feel sorrow for their loss, while at the same time celebrating Aegon and his sisters. Give the show complexity, and not just glorifying battle after battle, which it very well could easily become. Characterization in itself is going to be a tricky task. While House of the Dragon did indeed have to flesh out its own characters greatly, given how much more detail the source material is for the Dance of the Dragons, Ryan Condal and the writing team had a really solid base to start from. I would argue out of the 3 Targaryen siblings, we know the most about Visenya, a warrior, politically minded and cunning. We know Rhaenys on a surface level, and in a sense, she's almost the opposite of Visenya in many ways, but also loving and caring, and seems to care for the small folk. Then you have Aegon the Conqueror himself, who is very much an enigma of a character. We don't really know anything about him as a person other than the glorified image in the history books. We know he supposedly married Visenya for duty and Rhaenys for love, and that Orys Baratheon, while his bastard half-brother, is also his best and closest friend. We can also infer from his actions that he at least has some sense of honour, as at least before the conquest he did make an attempt to settle matters peacefully, even though a peaceful conquest was ultimately never going to happen. But even when it came to the likes of Harrenhal and the burning of Harrenhal, while in truth it was a Tywin Lannister-esque roots and stem destruction of an ancient house, he did attempt to peacefully settle the matter before the burning. This is also backed up by how he treats Torrhen Stark when the king in the north bends the knee. Conversely, during the First Dornish War and the Dragon's Wrath, Aegon and Visenya were both capable and willing to kill without discretion, be that burning a castle or the villages of small folk. But other than this, Aegon as a person we know very little about. Thus, it's something the writers are going to have to develop. Orys Baratheon for me is an extremely compelling character. The founder of House Baratheon, a Targaryen bastard, and from what we know, he's a really important part of the conquest, and a big reason why it went smoothly. There is a reason he was the first hand of the king. He was Aegon's right-hand man, and most trusted general. With Orys also comes the mystery of his birth, and who exactly his mother could have been. Plus, even in the Seven Kingdoms pre-conquest, we have several extremely interesting characters. Argella Durrandon, the daughter of the last Storm King, who marries Orys, merging the Durrandon and Baratheon lines, having the gall to declare herself the first Storm Queen in the face of the dragons of House Targaryen. It tells you everything you need to know about her and the kind of person she was. Her relationship with Orys is also something I'd be fascinated to see. I'm really looking forward to seeing this project if it gets greenlit. If it's handled in the right way, it has the making of a fantastic TV show. But the point of this video isn't to try and say it's going to be bad, but more to highlight just how much work the writers are going to have to do to make the project what I believe many fans and HBO expect it to be. House of the Dragon is by no means perfect, but did a better job at translating a history book into a drama and character-driven piece on screen than I believed it would. This Aegon's Conquest project, should it get greenlit, needs to do the same, albeit more so than House of the Dragon did, given the even more vague and detached nature of that specific era of source material.